Today, we are diving into a question that's as fascinating as it is, frankly, a little terrifying. It sits at the very heart of how our financial markets work and sometimes how they break.
Okay, just imagine this for a second. You wake up, you check your phone, and every single news outlet is screaming about it. The markets are on fire. It feels like everyone you know is getting rich, practically overnight. The energy is just electric.
But then, flash forward maybe 6 months, those same news channels, now they're delivering some really grim news. The party's over, the bubble has burst, and billions of dollars just gone.
So, what is going on here? Why do we, as humans, keep falling for the exact same trap again and again? This isn't a new phenomenon. It's a pattern that goes back for centuries. And that's the core question we're going to unpack in this explainer. So let's start by getting one thing straight. This is not a modern problem, at all. It's what I'd call a timeless trap, a pattern that's basically woven into the very fabric of financial history itself.
I mean, look at this. You've got the Dutch going completely crazy over tulip bulbs in the 1600s. Then there's the South Sea stock craze, the dot-com explosion, and of course the massive housing crisis in 2008. The specific asset always changes. It could be tulips, stocks, houses, you name it. But the human behavior behind it, it's remarkably and kind of scarily consistent.
So when we say economic bubble, what are we actually talking about? Well, in the simplest terms, it's when the price of something completely disconnects from its real fundamental value. It stops being about what the thing is actually worth and becomes all about what you think someone else will pay you for it tomorrow. And you always hear those 4 most dangerous words in investing. This time, it's different. That's like the battle cry for every single bubble. It's this belief that we've entered a new era where the old rules just don't apply anymore. But here's the spoiler. History tells us, loud and clear, it never is. In fact, this pattern is so predictable that you can almost map it out. It has an anatomy. So let's break down exactly how a bubble forms, stage by predictable stage. The economist Hyman Minsky actually gave us this brilliant 5-stage roadmap. It all starts with what he called a displacement. That's the spark, some new technology, a new policy, something exciting like the internet or AI. That spark ignites a boom and prices start to climb as the media jumps on board and the fear of missing out kicks in. Soon, that boom goes nuclear and turns into euphoria, where greed just completely takes over. But quietly in the background, the smart money starts cashing out. That's the profit-taking phase. And that's the little pinprick that leads to the final stage, panic. That's when the whole thing just collapses.
And believe me, that panic phase is absolutely devastating. After the dot-com bubble popped, the NASDAQ lost almost 80% of its value. The housing crash? It kicked off a global recession. And those tulip bulbs people were paying fortunes for? Their value crashed by over 99%. It's brutal.
So, here's the most important point. These bubbles aren't just about bad math or flawed economic models. At the absolute core of every single bubble is something way more fundamental and way more predictable, our own psychology. Let's take a look at the mind behind the mania. People figured this out a long time ago. All the way back in 1841, a guy named Charles Mackay wrote this incredible book where he basically said that once a crowd starts believing in something wild, their ability to think rationally can just completely fly out the window. And that insight, it's just as true today as it was almost 200 years ago. It really boils down to a few key psychological triggers. It usually starts with FOMO, that intense fear of missing out. The economist Charles Kindleberger nailed it when he said, "There is nothing so disturbing to one's well-being and judgment as to see a friend get rich." That fear then gets amplified by herd mentality, where we just assume the crowd knows what it's doing. Then we start looking for anything that confirms our decision. That's confirmation bias, while totally ignoring the red flags. And all of this fuels an overconfidence that makes us feel like we just can't lose. It's a really potent and dangerous cocktail. So, what fuels all these biases? A really good story. I mean, think about it. For every bubble, there's a simple, super compelling narrative that makes the insane prices feel justified. The internet is going to change everything. You can't lose money on real estate. These stories make us feel like we're smart for jumping in, even when the numbers make absolutely no sense.
Okay, so knowing all of this, how can you actually protect yourself, right? How do you avoid getting swept up in the next big mania? Let's talk about building your financial toolkit.
There are a few key warning signs to watch out for. From a valuation perspective, a high CAPE ratio, that's a long-term measure of stock market valuation, getting up over 25 is a historical red flag. Behaviorally, you can look for rising margin debt. That's people borrowing money to buy more stocks, which is a huge sign of speculation. And psychologically, the moment you start hearing experts say, "Oh, traditional metrics are outdated now," that's when you should be really, really cautious.
Honestly, one of your best defenses is just a smart, balanced approach. Keep the big chunk of your portfolio, your core, in safe, diversified funds. You can have a smaller slice for some high-quality growth stocks. And if you absolutely have to play in the hot new thing, keep it to a tiny, speculative slice that you are fully prepared to lose.
Building up your mental armor really comes down to two things. First, you have to actively fight that FOMO. That means tuning out all the hype you see on social media and really focusing on the fundamentals. And second, you have to maintain discipline. That means setting your rules before a mania starts and then actually sticking to them, rebalancing your portfolio, no matter how good it feels to just let those winners run.
Ultimately, it really all comes back to this classic piece of wisdom from Warren Buffett. Understanding bubble psychology is what allows you to do this. When everyone around you is euphoric and greedy, that is your signal to be fearful.
Because at the end of the day, history doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it definitely rhymes. The assets will be different next time for sure, but the human behavior, it'll be the same. And if you learn to listen for that rhyme, you can protect yourself and quietly step aside before the music stops.
So I'm curious, which historical bubble do you find the most fascinating? The sheer absurdity of Tulip Mania? Or maybe the mind-bending complexity of the 2008 crash? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks so much for tuning in.